Okay. All systems go, Helen.
Excellent.
So let's just give it 10, 20 seconds. I'm just going to quickly do a check on LinkedIn and make sure it's running over there. Nice. Good. All right. Turn that off. Hello, hello, hello. Oh, hello on Instagram. Is that Tam?
Tammy.
Can I call her Tam? Tammy. Hello, Tammy. And hello, whoever is watching on the other platforms. We are on Instagram. We are on YouTube. We are maybe on Facebook, but I don't actually know. And we are on LinkedIn. And so welcome everybody who's watching, and whether you watch this live with us right now or you watch it later, thank you so much for joining us. And do let us know if you're online at any point. Pop a little hello in the comments. It'll be good to see who's joining us. And yeah, we've got a lot to do today, Helen and I. We were really reflecting on what everyone's been going through over the last 18 months, and we're very, very passionate about conscious living and consciously reflecting on your life and moving forward with intention, and really paying attention to what you're going through with everything that's been going on. And that's what this session is all about, essentially. As I said in my video, if you watched this the other day, it was 2 weeks to flatten the curve. 18 months later, here we are, and we've been through a lot. And I don't know about you, Helen, but I'm exhausted. And it gets challenging, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to do some training. This is basically a training session, and we're going to give you some tools and some tips to move forward, whatever you've been struggling with, and also with all the good stuff that you've hopefully also experienced some of. And before I forget, let's do an introduction, because I do like to just start rambling on and forget to introduce us. So I'll do a very quick one for myself, and then Helen, you can introduce yourself. My name is Pinky, for anyone who doesn't know me. I'm a resilience trainer, coach, and consultant, and I'm all about human beings and how we live and who we are and why we're here, and answering the big questions in life, and really just learning about what makes us thrive, and how do we get through our challenges, and how do we have a great life, and how do we live to our optimal potential. So that's my life, basically. I spend all day, all night, and I wake up in the middle of the night with ideas and things, all about that sort of stuff. So that's me. Helen, do you want to give yourself an intro?
Well, I don't know if I can follow that, but also a lover of people and helping people live their best life. So for me, I'm all about getting people off the hamster wheel of feeling like they've got to do what they've always done and actually start living their life on purpose. So, and for that, that's all about living with intention and choosing what you want to happen in your life and making that happen. And also about really listening to people and helping people listen to each other. So I love facilitating in terms of like fixing a problem together and getting to a really good solution that's going to work for everybody. So yeah, that's me, I guess.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I love what you said there about the togetherness and the doing things together, because I think that's a really key message that we want to share today as well is, do this with other people. Often we can feel very alone in this, but, everything we're going to go through today, we'd love for people to talk to their teams about that, talk to your family, talk to your friends, and really work through this together. And, one of the worst feelings is just feeling like you're going through your challenges alone, and it's just not true. And as we go through, Helen and I will share what we've been through as well, because this is a very human experience, and we're all about real talk and honesty about, what it's like to be living at this time and going through the stuff that we're going through. And that, really, again, it's about moving forward intentionally with clarity. Look, we don't know what's coming. Pandemic is never ending, and we all know that whatever is coming is going to be different. Like, we know it's not going to be the same as before, but we are very good at just letting things happen and just letting it all sort of bumble along or just keep marching on. But actually, what I'm really passionate about is us realizing that we are creators. We are here to create our reality and our experience. And in order to do that, you need to stop first and actually assess things and actually move forward with intention. So that's really what this is focused on. So let's kick off on the first section that we're going to look at today, which is really called Put It All on the Table. The good, the bad, the ugly. some people don't want to talk about the ugly and the bad, and then they just want to be all positive and just everything's fine, keep on going. And personally, I'm not a fan of that. I prefer honesty over being positive. Be honest. That is such a core part of any personal development. So we really just want to put it all on the table and share with you the truth about what we've been through, what we're going through. And we'd love for people in the chat to also share how you've experienced the last 18 months. So Helen, do you want to lead us through this section and tell me when you'd like me to put up our display?
So were we going to start with the thrive in terms of what went well? And not went well, I guess the opportunities that arose. And for me, like what I look back on and think is really funny is in the first lockdown when we were told that we could exercise for an hour, I was like, I took that. Like that was almost my get out of jail time. And me and my husband would go for a really lovely walk in the countryside and really enjoy it. Like I had that opportunity anyway. But being told you've got 1 hour to go out really kind of, for me, restored my love of being outside. And also, something else that I did was like I really got back into cooking, like cooking properly, with real food. And I've actually sustained that, for the last kind of 18 months. There's some success and some not so much success. But, I think there have been things that maybe we learned about ourselves or learned about our relationships, because goodness me, have relationships been tested in this time? Because, for so many people, whether you're in like a relationship or a family or whatever that thing is, suddenly you're all at home together, like you're all sharing that space, and we're not used to that. So like coming out the other side of that has been fantastic.
Can I ask you about your friendships and things? Do you think they changed in any way, in a positive way?
I think
Or
I think it's been interesting, and yeah, for some definitely better, because you're kind of forced into having a conversation where you might have let time drift till you saw each other. But definitely for me, the biggest change in a positive sense was family, like connecting with my siblings more, because we properly made the effort to catch up. So for me, that was definitely better. How about
yeah.
you?
Yeah, no, interesting you say about family. So for me, like I've got some nephews over in Canada, and normally I see them every year for 4, 5, 6 weeks a year, and I haven't seen them now for 2 years. And that I'm not going to get into the survive bit yet because that's part of that. But at the same time, like you say, we were, and they were home as well, right, for a lot of this because they weren't going to school, so they now had more free time. So they were video calling me every day, and I had lots of time because I wasn't on my long commute, which is definitely one of my thrive ones, is not having to spend, God, I was probably spending 15, 16 hours a week on the train on top of doing 60, 70 hours in the office, or 50 hours in the office. And that was a long, hefty commute that I didn't have to do. So yeah, I had a lot more connection with my nephews because we were video calling all the time, more than we normally would because they were home. Definitely enjoyed not doing the commute. And like you, when we had the first lockdown, the weather was so nice. And I was like, I don't know what's happened now, but that time was so good. And I like you, and lucky I live in the countryside. And I was exactly like you were saying, I could go for these walks all the time, but I wasn't before that. And now it was like, okay, now I can do it. And just walking along the river and in the countryside was just absolutely beautiful. And so really everything for me slowed down, even though there was still a lot of work on, and it was really difficult, like doing that transition, figuring out as you're moving from office to home and working with clients when you're doing that transition. But actually everything did slow down because I wasn't getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and doing my commute, and the sun was shining, and everyone was kind of like slowed and taking a pace to sort of figuring out what we were doing. So those things were really, really good for me. Also, actually, as time progressed, I had a lot more time, which meant that because I wasn't doing that commute and I wasn't out on the socials that I would normally be out at the weekends and things. And so I did a lot of training courses over the last year, which have actually completely changed my life and continue to do so. So I made that conscious choice, and the opportunity arose. I've got all this time that I don't normally have, and I used it for in just the most amazing way. I had all the time to do all this training, and it's really actually set me off on a whole new path of life and career as well. So for me, it has been a lot of thrive areas in that respect. So, should we look at our Wordle?
Yes.
So we've done a Wordle. I'm sorry, Instagrammers, you can't see the Wordle, but I'm going to read some of the things for you. So we were really just having a look, because I think, Helen, what we were talking about, is that everyone is experiencing this differently. And the things that I've experienced as things that are making me thrive may not be the things that other people are experiencing. So some of the things we've got on here are, the walks that people are having, exercise. I really like also actually the innovation, because I know many businesses have suffered, but actually also some businesses have ended up thriving because they've innovated in some way to now deliver services in a different way. And I actually think that's really, really positive. And working from home, I think, is actually positive in balance. Any of these that you want to talk about, Helen? Any that jump out for you?
The bit for me, like you were saying about the businesses and the innovation, is when like people came together and said, what can I do with the skills that I have that can actually benefit people? So I think where festivals had to cancel or events had to cancel, and then like actors or musicians were saying, how can I bring this to people? Because it's still something that gives them a lot of joy, but they could still share that with others. So
Yeah.
was it Gary Barlow had a sing along with friends, or
Mm,
and I think, like to your earlier point about the feeling like we're in this together,
mm,
gave everybody a sense of it'll be okay, because we're all, there was some level of equality, I think, at that time,
yeah.
because we were all grounded, like quite
Mm,
literally. So yeah, and like you were saying about courses and stuff, there was so much that suddenly became available, and so
yeah.
yeah, I did a lot of stuff as well.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and I think the kindness piece really
Mm,
stood out for me, because I think there was an opportunity to look after your neighbour, or to, the clap for carers, like to be able to come together in a kind way.
yeah. Yeah.
Actually, Tammy's just put a comment
Yeah.
on there. She says, I realised that I actually quite like long walks. I was furloughed and was the healthiest I'd been in forever. Out every
Yeah.
day in the sun, walking and cycling, cooking great food. It was great.
Fantastic. I
Totally.
like I like the fact that Tammy says it was great. So I'd be interesting
Yeah,
to
what does that
know
mean?
what's happened, has it changed, and why? Because
Mm,
that's exactly what this session is about, right? Is we've all been
mm,
through a journey. I don't think anyone is the same now as they were at the start.
mm,
I think it was quite a novelty at the start as well, like having this time and being able to relax in a way that we don't normally do. And then after a while, I think it all became a bit more difficult. But again, that's not necessarily the case for everyone. One of
mm,
the other things that just comes to me as well in terms of the thriving is because we were forced online. I've actually met probably, because I know we're doing social distancing, but I've actually probably increased my social circle more than ever
mm.
before through online communities and networks and training groups and so on. And I don't just mean like a connection with people. It's like people, like actually, like Helen, we're working on stuff together, and I have other people like that who I have regular calls with now, and I see them as friends, even though I haven't met them, and some of them are all over the world. And that only happened because of the fact that we were forced to go online. So again, for me, that's actually really helped me thrive. So let's have a look at any other of these, and anyone in the comments as well. And thank you, Tammy, for sharing what you've experienced. If anyone else is watching, or even if you don't watch this live, do put in the comments, because it'd be really interesting to see what different people have experienced. I know lots of people were loving the Joe Wicks. I'm not going to lie. I didn't get into that. I love him, but I'm just lazy. And so I didn't do any exercise. But I know some people really, really needed that, and it really helped to them. And again, that's an innovation, right? That the way that he just went for that and brought that to people, I think, was really powerful. So any more of these? Do you reckon, Helen, that catch your eye?
Well, do I think like, because like the declutter thing, I
Hmm.
think that's so much bigger than just that. I mean, like you think about the poor charity shops couldn't cope with all the stuff that they got given
Mm,
when they were able to open again. Because I wonder
yeah.
if many people went, I just don't need this. You know,
Yeah.
like, because where we may have entertained ourselves or
Mm.
made ourselves feel better by shopping, you know,
Mm.
and don't get me wrong, I do appreciate that internet shopping kind of
Yeah.
did increase. But I wonder if people looked around their things and went, surrounded by things I don't even want or need.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, you
Absolutely.
know,
And I think it did allow a lot of people to reflect on many areas of their lives, hopefully in a positive way.
mm,
But yeah, absolutely, I totally agree with that. What else have we got in here? Let's have another quick look on here. No commute, definitely, as I've said, stands out for me.
yeah, yeah.
And
Do you
business
know, like,
opportunity. Yeah.
I was going to say on the no commute thing, I think for businesses to realise that they can work differently, I think
Yes.
will unlock so much because, you know, there are parents who have probably been looking for flexible working for years
Hmm.
and perhaps their business hasn't granted it, whereas now they've been forced to.
Yep.
And so they've realised, oh, actually, this can work. So I think
Yep.
there's been some real blessings that have come out of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and I think that's the exciting part of it, and it can be so easy to focus on the bits that you don't like and the bits that you're not sure about and the
Mm,
uncertainty and the. But to me, creativity and newness flourishes from the uncertainty, from there's always destruction before creation. That's just a law of nature, and so we have destructed old ways. But that's what we were talking about earlier. It's like, well, let's create the new now. And I think that's
mm.
really what's important. Like you say, it's forced us to reflect and look and say, actually, we don't have to be in the office all day. We don't have to do everything, we don't have to take all these flights. We don't. And I think, like you, I think that's actually a really exciting possibility now, which I hope people are doing consciously. And if you're not, this session will help you to do that. So let's go on to the survive stuff. I just want to lead into this actually. When we talk about survive, what does that really mean? To me, this is around your stress response and the stuff that put you in stress, put you in fear, put you into a lower state of consciousness. So when we go into that state, what happens is we are activating the lowest part of our brain, the primitive part of your brain called the amygdala. And essentially, that's your fight, flight, or freeze response. And it does all sorts of unhealthy things to your body. Like, it's okay if you get a burst of it and then you go back to normal, which is what's supposed to happen. But if you're constantly triggered every day, stress, 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 fear, 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 worries, 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 and you're constantly triggering this, it's basically shoving loads of stress hormones around your body constantly, and those are elevating your heart rate. They're having your blood pumping faster and faster. You're not breathing properly or in a healthy way. It shuts off your immune system, so you're more likely to get sick. The irony of that, when we're going through a pandemic, that everyone gets stressed, and now that's like going to make them more likely to get sick. It's like, that's not going to work. So, that's been happening. Your digestive system shuts off. And I think a lot of people maybe not realize, if you have a lot of digestive issues and you have stomach issues and stomach illnesses and irritable bowel syndrome or all of that sort of stuff, tends to be linked to stress and anxiety because your stress response is constantly kicking off, and it's not meant to be. It's not meant to be a constant chronic state of existence. And so that's the stuff that we're looking at when we talk about surviving, which we're going to bring up our Wordle for that in a moment. I'm just going to share a comment that we've had from Val. Thank you for joining, Val. And Val says, so this is going to be on the thriving, the family time, the no commute, the nature, eat better, and regular exercise. I love this. And this is very similar to what Tammy was saying and what you were saying as well, Helen. And I think, these seem like such basic things.
Yeah, yeah.
And now suddenly we're like, oh, those are really nice, aren't they? And I'm like, yeah, shouldn't that just be like basic life? Well, we must have been missing those, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think they're the foundations, aren't they, that everything else is built on.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why we've been a bit wobbly, you know, in the past and potentially going into the future. Because if you haven't got this, you haven't
Yes.
got this bit to stabilize you, what are you building on?
I love that. I absolutely love that. We're going to capture that and make it a quote because that
Write
would
it
be
down.
important. Right down. That was perfect. I really, really love that. Thank you. Awesome. Good. All right. So let's go on to the survival stuff. So let me just pop this on the screen, and for Instagrammers, we will share with you. I mean, okay, I'll read a few of these. Zoom fatigue. Everyone had Zoom fatigue at some point, I think. Um, Negative news, I think that's definitely one of mine. As we go through, I'll just pick out the ones that resonate with me, and then Helen, you can share as well what's working for you or
Mm.
what you experience. But negative news, I find really, I'm going to use the word toxic. I think, hammering the fear, fear, fear is really, I think it's actually insane. Like, imagine, Helen, if I came to your house and I just stood in the corner and I shouted at you every 2 minutes, how many people are dead? You're going to die. There's problems. You're going to death, fear, death. Like, you'd be like, get out my house. But people play it all day, every day
Mm.
on the screen. They read the papers, the headlines. And, we call it fear porn, and it sells. It sells. And on some levels, you can see that it's done to try and provoke you into doing what needs to be done, because it's the stick, right? You got the carrot or the stick. And because of the way that our consciousness is structured collectively, we seem to think that sticks work better. It doesn't work, I believe, because when you're in a stressed out state, you lose all your higher functioning. And your higher functioning, your creativity, your ideas, your rationale, your calmness, your empathy, you lose those. And actually, that's what you need to go through these kind of complex challenges. You need that kind of thinking. And maybe, like you were saying, Helen, that's why at the start, when we hadn't been hammered too hard with the constant fear, everyone was more
Mm.
kind, everyone was more rational, everyone was okay and just taking it in and moving through what we needed to do. But then I think it just got too much, too much, too much, constant, constant, constant. And then we just get kicked into too much fear response. And then we lose our senses, we lose our kindness, we lose our care, we lose our thoughtfulness, and then we're exhausted. So I think the news and the media has a lot to answer for. I don't watch it, it's very rare. I'll turn it on here and there. For the first few months, I watched a lot. I was keeping a track of the numbers. I was looking at things. And then I thought, this is making me miserable. I'm not watching it. I'm not learning anything new. I'm not going to it's like you wouldn't eat rubbish. So why put it into your brain? Like toxic, negative, And so I thought, look, if there's anything I need to know, someone I know is going to tell me. I don't need to watch the news. If there's anything important that's changed or I need to know, someone will tell me. So that for me has been a really big one, because I think the media has a big responsibility for the societal collective well-being, and I don't, to be honest, think a lot of media, I don't think they do it very well. And so that's something that I've experienced. I think I lost businesses, lost jobs. That was obviously a massive thing for many people. And again, it's not just a lost job, it's your finances, your bills. Can you pay your rent? Can you keep a roof over your head? Can you feed your children? This is really serious stuff. And this is why I use the word trauma when I talk about all of these things that we're going through. And this is why we want to have this session, because it's really important that you understand that these are not small things. These are real deep stresses, deep difficult traumatizing experiences. And so you need to move through them consciously. The other thing I think that really was for me a big thing around the survival, or the sort of the things that cause me stress. I think, well, there's a few things. I'll share three more quick things. And then, Helen, let's go over to you and also to people in the comments. What was your stresses? What were your struggles? What were the things that you found most difficult and are still finding difficult potentially as well, because we're not out of it yet? So for me, I need a beach. I'm desperate. Ocean, beach.
Mhm.
And I know I live on an island in England, and I know we have beaches, but I'm sorry, it's just not right. It's not good enough for me right now. I need hot sun. That's the thing. I need hot sun and a beach, and I need a holiday. I need a break. I'm desperate. It physically hurts. I really want to go. And because of all the uncertainty around that and how it keeps changing, that's causing me stress, because I feel like I can't book anything or feel like comfortable that it's going to happen and it's all safe and everything's fine. I can't, because it's all over the place. And so that's causing me a lot of tension. Whereas normally holiday booking would be a really fun thing that you get excited about, where it's actually just causing me more stress. The other thing for me, as I mentioned a bit earlier, is not seeing my nephews. Then I don't have kids of my own. They're like my babies. And I've seen them every year of their life for, 8 years it was, for a long period each year. So to not have that, And to hear them as well being like, can we come to London? When are we coming to London? It's like, oh, it hurts because I can't say when they're
Mm.
coming, and I just want to squeeze them and I can't, and that really upsets me. I miss them insanely. So that's been very difficult for me. And my sister, I should mention my sister, who's their mum. I miss her too. Yeah, I do. I do. And the last one I think I'll just share with you that I found hilarious. I find it hilarious now, but this is when it all started, and we weren't sure if we could go to the office or not, because it was kind of like, do what you want. There's no rule yet, and I couldn't make the decision myself. I didn't want to be the one that went into the office and then what if I got something and then I spread it to the whole of the office, and I found that really difficult. And then I think I started making myself sick because I started thinking, am I sick? Am I sick? Am I sick? Have I got a headache? Have I got a sore throat? Have I got and I started feeling like I did. And I was like, I don't, but I'm convincing myself. That's the power of the mind. That's a whole nother topic. But for me, that was a really stressful time because the rules weren't clear. There were no rules. And I thought, I don't want to be the one to spread something, but no one's making the decision for me. So that was stressful. I'm going to do a quick comment from Val,
Mhm.
and then Helen, we will go over to you, and also on Instagram. And Tammy, if you're still there, or anyone else. So Val is mental health issues. Absolutely. Those are huge. And I feel like we just haven't talked about it enough. For me, that was the very first thing I thought about. As soon as we went into lockdown and I could see it was going to go past 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and maybe that's just because this is the work I do. And so it's always front of mind. That was the first thing that came to my mind, is like, this is going to cause serious psychological issues. And I feel like it's never really been at the forefront, maybe a little bit now, maybe because I don't watch the news, I've not seen it, but I feel like that is a massive thing. Exhaustion, Val says, absolutely. I feel exhausted too, Val. The fear, yeah. Isolation, no hugs. Oh my God.
Mm.
Hugs are important. Hugs are really important. And the thing is, it's not just a hug, it's physical. That's mental, physical, emotional. It's all one. And so having a physical hug releases certain hormones into your body, which are very healthy for you. They're good, healthy hormones. And, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, these things are not, it doesn't say hugs on it specifically, but, this kind of social connection and stuff, this is not a luxury. It is a
Mm.
necessity for human wellness and for thriving and for health and for well-being and survival. We do not survive alone. We do not survive in isolation. And it's very damaging, actually, to have this long period, I feel, of isolation. So I don't take that lightly. And no travel, absolutely. I need a beach. Thank you, Val. Helen, I keep saying I'm going to go over to you, but we've got another comment through. So
That's
am
okay.
I right to do that one?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
We got plenty of time anyway. We're doing good with time at the moment. Mariana, apologies if I haven't said that right. I really miss my family who lives in another country which I can't travel to, and I struggle with not being able to make plans as I am a planner. I feel you on that. Absolutely. Um, and that's the thing, some people think, oh, you just want holidays, you can go without a holiday. It's not actually just a holiday.
Mm.
A lot of people want to see their loved ones. And I look at my parents and it's like they haven't seen their grandkids for 2 years. And that's what they live for at that age, the grandkids, and that's their life. And they haven't
Mm.
seen them. And I see them living the last years of their life, not having the thing that's most important. And that's hard to watch as well. And it's these things, like everyone just focuses on COVID, but this is a very complex issue: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, behavioral, societal, young, old, short term, long term, medium term. All of this is being affected. And that's the way I look at things, which is why I think it's important that we have a conversation about all these different elements. So, Helen, now over to you.
Oh, thanks. I think, like, kind of something about what you were saying before about the human connection. I think what's maybe more latterly than earlier, or maybe a bit of both, was not knowing what you could and couldn't do with people. Like I'm a quite a touchy person, and like when I say hello, I'm likely to touch someone on the arm or something like that. And how many times I went to do that, and someone would like shrink back And I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. You know, like, because what's very natural for me, or somebody tells you something and you want to comfort them or something, and then you realize that, you know, and for me, I was embarrassed and shocked, you know, about someone withdrawing away from me. And I think about that, you know, going forward, like when you go back to the office, you wear a mask, you don't wear a mask. You stand, you know, what if you're standing next to someone and they stand back? You know, there's those little triggers that are going to happen all of the time, that you've invaded someone's space or they've invaded yours, you know, all of those kind of things. So I think that that's been really tricky. And the thing you say about hugs is there was a period of time like where things have changed, where you potentially could see someone and there were people that I just didn't want to see if I couldn't hug them. Like it was worse to see you physically and not be able to give you a kiss or give you a hug, and so I'd rather not do it. So I think, yeah, this is the extent of what's,
Yeah.
you know, heartbreaking. But I think as well, the real challenge is about people losing their jobs, losing their homes. Because I remember, like, when there was talk about landlords having to give some financial space to people who couldn't afford. And then I was thinking, but what happens to them? You know, like, how do, you know, if they've got a buy to let mortgage, who's paying that? You know, and like, where does it end and who supports them? And like, for me in the financial situation, I'd literally just decided to start my own business. So I'd left a paid job to start this, didn't qualify for any kind of support. I mean, luckily, I had savings behind me, so I'm okay. But there were many people who fell through those gaps, and there was no, you know, I know, like, money saving expert Martin Lewis, he, bless him, campaigning really hard to try and get, you know, our voices heard, but there was nothing, and, you know, and there hasn't been anything, you know, coming forward.
No.
So yeah, I think, like you were saying, it's so different for so many people. It really, really depends.
It does. And I actually can't think of a single person that I know who didn't have at least something somewhere for a moment that they found difficult. Although that does just take me to a comment that we've had, which I'll put up
Mm,
for you from Saliha. I'm really sorry if I'm getting the names wrong. These are all very beautiful names over at Saliha. Should I feel bad for thriving in lockdown? Helen, what do you say to that?
definitely not.
No,
Definitely
no.
not. Because I think if you can find something that works for you should never apologize for that, ever.
That's another quote. Write it down. I love that. I love that. I've got this vision of all our quotes already. We're going to make them. Um, yeah, I love that. No, absolutely don't apologize. No way. And you know, and I think that is it, right? Sometimes you can feel guilty if you see other people suffering and you're not. You know, like I was saying earlier, this has been one of the most pivotal periods of my life with all the training and
Mm,
the work and the shift in my business now and everything I'm doing. I'm really going for my dreams in a way I've never done before. And it's also because of COVID, actually, I didn't mention, it was that made me push forward again on my resilience training, because I've been doing that before, but I was a bit pandery about it. But now I was like, if there's ever a time that people need it, it's now. And that actually gave me the push. And now I'm like loving my life. I'm like, this is so, you know, don't. And Saliha says I got the name right. Thank you. Very good. Very good. Um, so no, absolutely don't apologize. But you know, and I'd also say on the other side of that, don't apologize for not thriving. Don't apologize
mm,
for struggling. Don't apologize for feeling sad, feeling down, feeling depressed, feeling lonely, feeling confused, feeling exhausted, you know, or exactly those, feeling happy, feeling like your life might be booming. You might have built a new business in this time and it's given you a great new opportunity and you're like loving it. And it's all okay, you know, and I think that's why we called this section Put It All on the Table. It's all okay. But the key thing is, this is about self awareness. And so to recognize that you are thriving is great. And to
mm.
recognize that there are certain things you struggle with is great, because this is get it all out and become aware of what's gone on for you. Because we're so busy to just keep go, go, go. But the power of stopping and reflecting and actually taking a moment to say what's really going on is a really, really important Foundation. So before we go on, we're moving quite ahead of time. So Helen, do you want to talk any more about, the way that we've experienced it, and anything about companies in particular that comes to your mind at all? 'Cause we've talked quite a bit about the personal as well, or is there anything
Well, I was just
else?
going to catch up with some comments on the Instagram. So Tammy says, I missed
Yeah.
hugging my friends and family, but
Oh,
the forced rest was a blessing for my mental health. I think that's so true because, like, we were forced not to see people and so forced not to be in social engagements that
yeah,
maybe we didn't feel ready for, or, whatever. So I think that's a really good point.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
Thank you for doing those. So I didn't realize all these comments were coming in. It was just
That's
stuck
okay.
on one,
And
and I
she
haven't.
also, Tammy also says, I tried to volunteer several times with different charities, but they weren't taking any more volunteers as so busy. So that's
Oh, wow.
heartening. She says, yes.
Yeah, I love that. Thank
Mm.
you. Are there any more in there that you want to cover, Helen? Because I'm trying to scroll through and I can't even read them.
Oh
It's
no,
so
well,
small.
Tammy mentioned about the same as you about not watching the news. Like,
Yeah,
we used to watch it every day, but then couldn't believe what was happening, particularly when we went into lockdown.
yeah,
And stop watching it full stop. And I have to say, I'm in that camp as well. Like, I find it too stressful,
yeah.
um, and an environment where I don't know if it's because a lot of people are in fear, you're looking for someone to blame.
Mm,
And so the news seems to kind of provide you someone on a
yeah,
daily basis.
yeah,
They made this decision, or, whatever the
yeah,
thing was, so that you've got somewhere to direct your anger, which I don't
yeah,
think is particularly helpful.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing, I'm concerned about the high street
Mm,
because so many businesses have gone under. Now, I'm a big fan of Mary Portas, and I've been following her work with trying to save the high street for many, many years,
mm,
and it really, really concerns me what the high street will look like going forward, because I
yeah.
think it's a really important place for people to be and people to physically be
Community.
together.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. It's
And so
community.
so
Yeah,
many, so many, so many shops, haven't they, have struggled.
yeah, yeah. And I agree with you as well. It's that community, and I live in a village where it's a community, like little villages, little chocolate box
Mm.
villages. Everyone knows everyone, and and the pubs. That's the social gatherings. We have like a pub every two minutes, and that just hasn't been happening. And I remember for a while, if I'd go for a walk later in the evening, where normally there'd be people, and it was dead, and I didn't like it. I was
Mm.
like, "This is weird." It was eerie. It was really eerie. I'm just gonna share another comment from Saliha. My life has never been better. I can be a great mother
Mm.
and a great employee. Fantastic. I'd love to hear, Saliha, did you do anything consciously to get to that place? Do you feel that that just sort of fell in place for you? Or were you very conscious saying, do you know what, this is working for me, I'm going to do more of that, or I'm going to choose to do it this way, this way, this way, and I'm going to stop doing. Did you do anything like that? I'd love to hear, because this is the thing as well. It is about choice. Even if we're not making them consciously, we're always choosing. We're always
Mm.
choosing something in every second of every moment of every day. And that's what this course is about actually choosing consciously, and therefore being able to choose better, because often our unconscious choices are not always in our highest good. So it'd be really interesting, Saliha, to hear if you did anything in particular to have that kind of experience through this time. So, all right, do you fancy going on to moving forward?
Yes, that feels like a good thing to do.
So moving forward is what it says on the tin, which is, how do we move forward? And again, I know I sound like a broken record a lot of the time, and so I'm not going to go too much again into it, but it essentially is exactly what I've just said, which is, how do we move forward consciously, rather than just letting the sort of patterns follow out in the way that they have been. Celia said, no, just accepting the situation. That's powerful. What do you take from that,
Mm.
Helen? Anything from that?
Well, I think I was going to use the same word, the power thing in that is when you realize what you can change and what you can't change, and you accept where you are. You might not like it, but you know what's within your control and what isn't. And
Yes.
so you say, what's the best I can do with what I have right now?
Mm,
And I guess that's the thing as well about being able to be within the moment. And like Mariana's point earlier about not being able to plan. And if you're a planner, that's really hard, because you kind of want to think, well, I can't do this now, but I can do it then. So to be able to accept
mm,
I can't plan,
mm,
that's tough. But to be able to do that, I think is pretty impressive, and does give you some element of peace, because what you were saying about choices, like we always have choices. They might be two rubbish ones,
mm-hmm,
but we always have choices. And actually, when we make a conscious decision,
mm-hmm,
we have control, and that makes
mm.
us feel better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. And exactly like you're saying, it is knowing what you can and can't control is a key part of resilience. The most resilient people are very aware of that. And you can do a little exercise, just to chuck a little ad hoc exercise in here. So you draw 3 circles. So you do one and then a ring around it and then a third one around it. And the central one is control, so what you can control. The second ring around it is what you can influence. And the third one around it is what you have no control over. And so you can just spend a bit of time by yourself or with the team or with whoever you want to actually just fill that out. You can do it individually and
Mm.
say, what can I control? What can I influence? And what is out of my control? You could do that as a company. What can we control as a company? Or as a team? What can we influence? What can we not control? And then the key is to put all your efforts and energy in towards the things you can control firstly, and then selectively the things that you can influence. And anything in the out of control box, you just got to let it go. You cannot control Boris Johnson. You cannot control Matt Hancock. Oh, are we going to go there? Are we going to go there? I don't know.
Not today.
Not today. Um, but that's it. I can't control. There's so much we can't control, but we try to even by talking about things we can't control. We are giving it energy, and it's all energy. If you imagine, this is how much energy I have. I've got to spread it out amongst certain things. If I give it all to something I can't control by like focusing on it, reading about it, talking about it, moaning about it, whatever, and then it's empty, what have I got to give the other areas of my life now? So do you have a finite amount of energy? That's not true. I take the word finite back, but that's existential stuff. but the point is, you have energy, you have a certain amount of time, and let's just say you have a certain amount. You do have a certain amount of energy during a day. We're not Duracell batteries, bunny things. That advert, which is like go go go. So you got to choose wisely where you put it to get a result that you want. And so put it into things you can control and things that you can influence. And that would be an interesting thing to see what people think around, are there things that you feel like you were trying to control that you couldn't? Or, are there things that you realize you can influence that maybe you thought you couldn't? And does any of that resonate with you? Saliha has a comment. I'm not a planner. I take whatever comes to me and act accordingly. I like that.
Mm.
That's got a good vibe. Teach me, please. Oh,
You know,
I love it.
what came to me when you were talking there
Mm,
was also accepting how we feel,
mm,
because I think some days we're sad, or in moments we're sad, and it's okay for that. Like the idea that we should be happy all of the time or feeling good all of the time is a fallacy.
mm,
Um, and we shouldn't have to immediately change it. Like you talk about your nephews in the same way I feel about my nephews, and it just, like it broke my heart. Like I just couldn't bear thinking about not seeing them. Um, and so to feel sad about that's okay. Like I don't have to work really hard to go, but how can I feel good about this? Because I can't,
no,
and I guess that goes in the outer circle of I can't control that.
no. And what you're saying there just leads really nicely into our next bit about really, the general tips around reduction of stress and wellness and acceptance. I'd like to work with that a little bit more if you're up for that, Helen,
Yeah.
because I think it is a really, really important thing. So accepting what is, I wrote about this a little while ago, and sometimes people get their back up when I say accept what is, because they're like, how can I accept all this bad stuff that's going on? How can I accept all my problems and the things that I don't want to have in my life that I'm dealing with? And the thing we need to understand is that true acceptance is not a submission. It's actually a really powerful act of owning your life. It's like if I gave you a gift, Helen, what would you have to do? Like, you got to accept it and take it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't have that. You can't do anything with it, and it's still there. And you have to take something into your hands before you can work with it and do anything with it. But if I'm like, no, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it because I can't accept it, then you have no power, because you won't bring it into your space and say, actually, I can have, like, this is part of my world. I can own it. And I think, there's a little acceptance exercise we could do very quickly if you want to.
Do it.
We have some time for it. So people join in if you want to, or, if you're watching later, try this out. It's just very, very simple. First, before you do it, I'd like you to set an intention to experience the power of acceptance. Because if you go into it with any sort of funny mind, or that wants to like fight everything in the world, it's not going to work. So you have to really set a clear intention to go into it and say that you want to experience the power of acceptance. And all you're going to do is you close your eyes, and I'm actually going to do it on something that's come up for me as we've been talking, Helen. Is that one of my issues, as I spoke about, is the holiday thing. I'm desperate for a holiday. I really want to go away, but I'm not booking anything because of all the uncertainty and the craziness, and it just makes it all feel really awkward. But at the same time, I know in my heart and soul, I really need to take a trip. So what's coming up for me is, can I accept the fact that it might fall through? Can I accept that the rules might change, and it might, and my desperate need to be on that trip might get all dashed into the bin? So pick something in your lives that you're struggling to accept, something that you don't want. You don't have to share it, Helen, if you don't want it. If you're doing, I've got my eyes closed, so I'm assuming you're doing this with me, but I can't see you.
Yes.
So but and if people want to share in the comments again, it would be wonderful just to share what you're going through, because other people will read this later as well, and I really want people to remember that they're not alone. And so if you can share your truth in the comments, we would love that so much. But whatever it is that you can't accept, or you're struggling to accept, that you don't want to be occurring, whether it's in your personal life or in the greater world, I'd like you to just call through an image of that, whatever it looks like. It may be quite symbolic. It may be very literal. And so I'm just imagining a picture of me with all my bags packed and then nowhere to go, and being really angry and also really sad at the same time, and just wanting to escape and not having anywhere to go. So just imagine that scenario that you don't want. And then imagine next to that scenario is you resisting it. You don't want that to happen. And pay attention to what goes on for you in this image, or in this sense, whatever you're getting, emotions and so on, of what it feels like to resist. Maybe you get angry. If you've got an image, can you see your own facial expressions? Can you see your own behaviors? Can you see your own energy? Can you see what you're doing? Maybe you run away. Maybe that's your way of resisting things that you don't want. Just run away and hope that, they don't exist, but they do. Or do you just sit down in a slump? Do you just give up? What is it that happens for you when you resist this thing that you don't want? And just get into the energy of it and really see it, really feel like, for me, I'm angry and I'm like, don't want this. And I'm sad. And I really like then go into like give up mode. And I feel so hard done by. And now what I'd like you to do is just scrub that out. Imagine in your mind you've got like a whiteboard marker or something, and just scrub it out, and you're blank sheet again. And now bring through that thing again that you don't want, that scenario, that image. And now bring yourself into the picture and imagine accepting it. Worst case scenario, accept. And again, I'd like you to really go there. Observe yourself when you are accepting the thing that you don't want. What's your energy like? What's your emotions? What's your behavior? What's your facial expressions? What are you doing? And for me, what I get is I shrug my shoulders and I get on with my life because there's so much more life to live. There's so many other things to do. There's so many other things I can, there's people, I can travel in England. There's all sorts of things. I tried it. It didn't work. I move on. And this is a whole different energy and potential outcome from acceptance. So accepting doesn't mean I want it, I condone it, I'm inviting it. Acceptance is putting the power back in your hands to say, if it happens, when I don't fight it, because what you resist persists, when I don't give it energy, I contain all my energy within myself. I keep it within myself, which is my power. And now I can use that energy and send it in a positive direction towards creating the next thing and the next thing and the next experience or whatever it is. Or maybe a solution to this problem may come to you. I don't know. But all that really is about is noticing the difference in energy between resisting versus accepting, and understanding that when you accept what is and you accept the worst case scenario, it loses its power over you. And now you're back in your power. Now you can choose consciously from a calm, considered, empowered state of how to move forward or how to deal with the challenge. So let's just come back into the room. I'm just going to open my eyes. Helen, did you try that? Did you get anything from that?
Do you know, I kind of went with your holiday thing because I think I've been doing a lot of accepting recently. And I think I've been probably banishing my thoughts of my desires of wanting to go away because I don't want to feel the disappointment, or like I have a bit of a history of like a little technique that I do when I don't want to feel pain is I pretend I just didn't want it, and then I don't have to feel the pain of it.
That's so interesting.
So I noticed that, like, when you were talking about how you felt about the holiday, I thought, actually, I have really wanted that. And like, to not think about it means you don't have to hurt about it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's not really there.
No, no, not at all. And I think
Mm.
it's just that realization, like for me, doing that exercise, what came so clear for the first time ever, because I haven't actually done the exercise on that particular topic until now, is God, it's not the end of the world. Do you know what I
No.
mean? You book it, it doesn't happen, get on with your life. Like that was actually really simple for me. Whereas actually I was making it into a really big thing in my head. Doesn't mean it's not going to be, a little disappointing maybe, but actually it doesn't have to be such a huge thing. We've got some more comments coming from Saliha, so I'm just going to have a quick look at those. We were talking about Saliho saying she's been thriving during this time. She says she doesn't really work on it. I guess I'm born like that. I don't deserve any credit. We'll give you credit. I think you can
Yeah,
have
yeah,
some credit.
absolutely.
Definitely. You are making choices. You're doing behaviors. And, absolutely what we experience in our childhood as well in the first 5 years of your life is what creates your patterns for your adulthood. So, there may have been things you experienced in your youngest years as well, that have meant that you've got certain behaviors and patterns that are helping you to go through these sorts of challenges, which is fantastic. Not having the choice after all this would annoy me. Sorry, Slee, I'm not sure what point that was at. But she also says, I usually accept things when I believe that fighting is a waste of time and energy. And that's it, is there ever a point at which fighting is worthwhile?
I don't know. I mean, the term in itself is quite aggressive, isn't it? It's like, you know, if something's a battle, I don't know.
I mean,
I don't know.
unless I was in a literal life or death situation, because in that scenario, your fight, flight, or freeze will naturally kick in. I don't know if I'm actually a fighter. I'd probably freeze. I think I'm a freezer. Like I would
Mm,
just, like if there was a lion chasing you and I would just freeze. But some people would fight. And so in that case, in a real survival situation, which is what the fight, flight, or freeze is supposed to be about, it's about an
mm,
immediate survival need. Then I guess it has a purpose. But I think for the modern complex challenges that we live with, it doesn't work because it's a very physical response. Fight,
mm.
flight, or freeze is about physically saving your body from death. But a lot of what we're facing is psychological challenges. And you
Yeah,
can't fight or flight or freeze from those. So that's why we need to get creative and activate our higher brain functions, because these sorts of challenges require higher thinking, not fight, flight, or freeze. But we've all been triggered through the
mm,
stress into our fight, flight, or freeze. And then we're trying to see, why is it not working? Why is it not fixing the problems? Why are we not getting better? Because it doesn't work for these kind of problems. It's
mm,
kind of like, well, I was going to come up with a really good analogy, but I don't actually have one. I was going to say, it's kind of like, you're cutting bread with a blunt knife. It's not going to work. Was that
mm.
bad? It will do. Um, one more comment from Saliha. She says, oh, I think I
Yes.
mean like going back to the office and not having a
Not
choice,
having
I think.
thoughts around that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's something people are challenged
Mm.
with. Are you going to have to go back to the office or not? Um,
Did you see there was someone who posted on LinkedIn
mm,
maybe yesterday
mm,
saying that she took her kids to school and as they were going in, they were being sent home because as a bubble, like I think one of the children in the class or something had tested positive for COVID, so all the kids had to come home. And I guess as a parent, that's something that you're going to have to face. And if you're expected back in the office, how are you going to manage that? I mean, that's
exactly.
tough, isn't it?
Yeah. That whole, I mean, I feel for people with parents with kids. I feel for people with parents. Um, I have a number of friends who've been dealing with that this whole time. It's like the kids are home, then they're not home, then they're home, then they're not home,
Mm,
then they're home, and it's really, and again, it's the uncertainty that is really unsettling for your mind and your emotions and everything, because you can't get, there's no grounding, there's no stability, and then you're just constantly like this, which again just triggers that anxiety, because anxiety is that rushing feeling, that sort of tense, like, you know and that's what it keeps propagating and propagating and propagating. And I think that's been, for me personally, I think that's been one of the biggest, most detrimental challenges of this time, is the uncertainty and the constant change, is really, really, really difficult for people. So, Helen, do you want to
yes.
talk a bit more about, in terms of moving forward, anything you want to share about that? And then moving into, like obviously we've got some tools and things, we've got some stress and wellness tips. So if you want to share more of those as a start.
Well, I think in terms of moving forward, we were thinking about what's helped you thrive in this time and how do you bring more of that. So we were
Mm,
talking about the walks and the cooking and all of those kind of things. So
mm,
how do we sustain those moving forward? Because they helped us, not only helped us get through a difficult time, but actually they've been really good for us. So how do we sustain that? And
mhm,
actually to move forward, like you were saying earlier, is to stop and take stock and go, how am I feeling?
mhm,
And what am I thinking about, and what actually can I take control over?
mhm,
And so, where you were talking in the beginning about talking to people, so whether that's as a family unit or as a team at work, to kind of talk about how you feel as an individual, how you feel within your unit, and actually what are we all going to do together? What does
mm,
as much as we can predict what the future might look like, and even if it's to talk about the only thing we can be sure of is change, is how are we going to adapt to that together,
mhm,
and also to talk about where your stress comes from externally, and how you feel when that happens and what you need. And I think that's the thing, is not to be frightened to ask for what you need.
mm,
um, because I think, like you were saying earlier about suffering alone, that you might think it's stupid or weak or whatever the thing is to be feeling how you're feeling, but actually if you speak about it, maybe other people are too. And I think you posted about it the other day about the whole keep calm and carry on thing. It's really not helpful because this is not the time for that. I think it's, in order to be able to express yourself, then to move on.
Yeah. And what's your view in terms of organizations about, the sort of appetite or the challenges for having these very frank conversations? Like, in your experience and just in your observation and opinion, what do you think might come up there for people, and what challenges people might have?
Do you know what concerns me for organisations is they make a plan without speaking with their staff.
Mm,
Because I think, in a boardroom, having a strategy about how we're going to deal with this might come up with some really good ideas. But unless you talk to people who are actually doing the jobs,
yeah.
how are you going to find out what their challenges are and how they can move forward?
Mm,
And also to talk about what's worked and what hasn't worked, because remote working may be great for some people and awful for others. And I think we've seen a real mixed bag of how people intend to come back. So some organisations have said, we're going to stick with remote working, like it's gone really well, we're going to stick with that. But actually, for some people whose office is their bedroom,
mm,
that could be really not ideal. So I think there needs to be some level of conversation with employees to kind of understand what's working, what's not working for them, and how do we make a compromise within all of this. And whether that's having a facility where you can come in for 2 days, or whatever those things are. But it's so important to
hmm
talk to employees, just to make them feel heard as well, because we need that, don't we? We
Yeah.
need to kind of to feel like someone's listened to us. And I think organizations have such an amazing opportunity to let people speak, just to have some time to kind of get it all off their chest and
Yeah.
to plan a response together.
Absolutely. And I think, within change management, because that's what this is now. This isn't just a
Mm,
bumble along and see what happens. This is a transformational change. Um, and so it needs to be managed as such. And there are change tools that people use and models that people use to actually manage it as effectively as a change program should be managed. And one of those key things in that
mm,
is exactly like you say, to engage with your staff and to ask what people are going through and what they need and what they want, and what their ideas are, and keep them involved in the process. But we know that that is actually where most companies struggle in any change, not just this one,
mm,
in any change. We know most change programs fail, and it's always because of the human behavior side of it. Because unfortunately, people don't really know the depths of human behavior and psychology and experience, and what drives us, and how to inspire us, and how to engage us. And it is a complex thing. I've been studying it for 15 years, and I'm still like, whoa, learning something new every day. But to take that level of knowledge into the workplace, I think, is really important, because that's how you get lasting change, sustainable change, successful change, is when you
mm,
really understand what motivates a human being, what triggers them, what doesn't, how their mind works, and how their emotions affect them, and how the culture is having an effect as well. And like you were talking about, okay, talking in the workplace and saying, do you know what? I don't want to come back in, actually, for 5 days a week, or actually, I'm really scared about being around people. I don't feel comfortable yet. Um, you know, there may be a lot of workplaces where people don't feel comfortable to have that kind of conversation.
mm,
And I've done a webinar on return to workplace recently, and people did say in that, you could see that the certain things they were asking, they don't feel that they can necessarily just go and have the conversation, because if they had the conversation at work, they wouldn't have come and asked me on the webinar, because they would have got their answer from their colleague, because I couldn't even give them an answer, because it was a very specific thing. So it's a very interesting thing, and I think it's a mixture of that. We'll just keep calm and carry on. Also, like, not feeling safe, and not feeling safe to be open about what you're going through and what your thoughts are and what your opinions are. And then also the lack of, ability to really run this as an effective change management program, because it needs to be done as such. So I think, yeah, those are going to be a number of things that are going to create some challenges in the workplace, but also an opportunity
Mhm.
if done well. So do we want to share any other things in the workplace or around individuals and what they can do in terms of wellness and getting that baseline, getting that initial conversation going and looking at things in terms of where we are?
Well, I think definitely the conversation is the most important thing. And I would say if anybody's watching this who is a manager of any people, you know, whatever level you are within your organization, is to talk to people about how they're feeling and
Mm.
what their concerns are. And to, you know, to go back to our earlier thing, put it all on the table.
Yeah.
Like nothing
Yeah.
is too big or too small to kind of put out there and say, this
Mm.
is what is bothering me. Because I think if we taboo stuff, or make people feel like we just get on with it, you know, we're going to have massive problems down the line.
Yeah.
And people are going to be feeling stressed already, and we're going to just be pushing people over the edge. So I think to get the foundations right when we
Mm.
move back into the workplace is
Mm.
so fundamentally important.
Yeah. And I think it's that non-judgmental listening as well,
Yeah.
right? Like, and which is not easy for any human being because our biases are always coming in, our projections are
Mhm.
always coming in. But can you actually listen non-judgmentally? And maybe you even do something simple like an anonymous place where people can actually share their views and
Mhm.
their thoughts without having a name attached to it, if that's going to help them to actually express. Because we all know that, well, I hope we all know that, people are the foundation of your business. So if they're not well and happy and fulfilled and feeling heard and feeling like their needs are being met, within reason, then they're not going to perform and they're going to be stressed. And when you're stressed, you're not resilient, you're not in your optimal performance, you're not creative, you're not anything useful when you're in a chronic state of stress, or even an acute one. Actually, I take that back. But sometimes stress is good. Not all stress is bad. That's important to know. It really is a key part of growth. But yeah, I think there's just something there around whatever I was just talking about, which I can't remember. What was I just saying?
You were talking about potentially having an anonymous way of kind of submitting your concerns so that, yeah, if that's, and I was thinking actually on that, even if you did a really basic survey that
Mm,
says, you know, on a scale of 0 to 5, how comfortable do you feel about coming back to the office? And,
yeah,
you know, on a scale, you know, asking your questions to give you an indication of
yeah,
generally how are people feeling,
yeah,
and not to say that you take that as a sweepstake that, oh, generally everyone's fine, therefore everyone's fine, because that's not fair or right.
mm,
um, but to be really mindful of the changes that we know of, like we talked about a situation with childcare with school. If you've got parents within your organization, there is a fundamental issue presenting itself that we already know about, you know, before
mm,
anything else happens. um, People with underlying health conditions could be, you know, or people who have people in their families with underlying health conditions. There are so many reasons why someone might be concerned about coming back into the office,
yeah,
and we need to be really mindful of that.
yeah.
And so, sorry.
No, I was just saying, get it on the table because you may not know
Exactly,
it.
get it all
Just because
out.
you
Yes.
haven't experienced it, so you may not realize that someone else is experiencing it. And it is that transparency, absolutely. Sorry, I cut into you. Carry on, please.
Oh no, no, you're right. So you know, and even if you're thinking that people might not be able to talk about it, is to start it off, you know, with some obvious things that you can think of, like, you know, and start off with your own concerns. And I think
Yeah,
that's really, really important if you're a line manager, to kind of share with people, maybe this is what went well, this is didn't go well for me, and this is what I'm scared about, you know, like coming back, or I'm mindful about, you know, be really honest.
yeah,
Because if you lead by example
mm,
and share your, you know, expose your vulnerability, then you're going to let other people feel safe to do the
yeah.
same.
Absolutely, absolutely. Vulnerability is the key word, and I think we do struggle with that a lot. But it is absolutely key. And I think like we're saying, everyone's going through different things, and I would just say, don't be afraid to speak. And maybe it's easy for me to say because I never shut up. Like, I'm always saying something, and I just like to, I'm generally, I will just be honest and say what I'm going through. But there are many complexities to that. What if a person thinks, is this going to go against me if I'm not going with what everyone thinks? If I want to stay at home but that everyone else doesn't, or is it going to affect my chance of a promotion if I'm not around? I think I read something about, I think it was for women particularly, they were saying that they'll be negatively affected because of the whole thing of kids coming home again, kids home, kids at school.
Yeah.
So the woman tends to stay at home, and then they're not in the office as much. And so does that go against them because they're not in the mix? They're not in front of people's faces, and people might forget about them a little bit. And so does that affect their chances of promotions and progress? And so this is a really, really, really complex, challenging situation. And I don't think anyone needs to be like trying to get it right, because who knows
Mm.
what that is. And it is going to be different for every company. It is going to be different for every team. It is going to be different in different industries. And I don't think there's any one easy answer, but I think it's actually a really exciting creative possibility, to we actually create the new workplace, create the new future of how we do things. I think that's really exciting. But we're in that period at the moment that's kind of like, I don't know how it's going to go. But let's take it by the hands. Take it
Mm.
by the hands, is that even take it by the horns? I think
Bull by the horns.
that's the one. I don't know, something like that.
But I think that's the thing is to remember that, your point about innovation earlier, some fantastic innovation has come out of this, and to
Mm.
be open to the potential that there's more.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have the ideas, we have the creativity, but we've got to engage it. But remember, when you're stressed out, you can't access your creative thinking.
Mhm.
So this is why the first thing is to calm down your stresses. And if you are a leader, you may be thinking, I don't know the answer. Your team might be coming at you every day with, I want this, I want that, I want this, I don't want to come in, I
Mhm.
do want to come. And you're like, how do I please everybody? So that might be stressing you out. You might be thinking about the finances in your business and thinking, I can't, balance the books with people working at home. They need to come in to do XYZ, and that's what makes us work
Mhm.
well together or something. And so you might be stressing about that. And any whatever it is that's putting you in a stressed out state is taking you away from your ability to think of creative solutions. And that is what a human being is remarkably capable of doing. But we can't do it when we're stressed, because it's two different parts of the brain and they don't work at the same time. So the first thing we need to do, as we've mentioned, getting it all on the table, being open, is a key part of that stress reduction and that introducing more wellness, because at least it's not pent up inside and you feel like, oh, I got it out, I released it. And are there any other tips you would suggest as well for people for that initial, let's turn off the stress response so that we can start accessing creative solutions? Are there any other things that we would suggest mentally or physically that people do if they are stressed to calm that down?
I think breathing is like the easiest, most accessible thing that we have. To be able to feet flat on the floor, either sitting up nice and straight, or even lying down. Like, I particularly like doing my breath work lying down, but to take some nice deep controlled breaths, and even like you can do that whether you're at home or in the office. Just to kind of breathe in and out and notice your breath, and in those moments you can just calm yourself right down,
Yeah.
and then come back to whatever you're facing.
And when you do your sort of breathing exercises, does it take you longer at a certain time than others to come to a sort of calmer baseline, or do you find any
Do you know, I think
differences?
with
Or
regular practice I'm
mm,
able to quicker,
yeah,
calm myself. And I'll give you the perfect example of this. So, I'm preparing a stress masterclass at the moment, and because the football's on, I'm taking every opportunity to work while the football's on, so I don't know. And I was in my office upstairs on Monday night
yeah,
writing on my stress presentation, and we had the biggest bolt of lightning. It struck 4 houses down, hit
yeah,
their aerial. It was terrifying. Massive noise. The room lit up. It was so frightening. My
yeah.
heart was just going 10 to the dozen, and for some reason, I just felt like I wanted to cry.
Oh,
Um, And after the initial, oh my God, what was that? And you realise, I went out in the hall and I just laid down on the floor
Yeah.
and just breathe
Yeah.
for, literally just for a couple of minutes, and
Yep.
just felt so much better.
I love that. And it's the thing, just a couple minutes. And my excuse, I haven't got a couple of minutes. I'm
Yeah,
too busy. I've got stuff to do. I don't have time to breathe. And you just think, how silly is
I
that?
know.
You don't have time to breathe. You have to be a little bit insane to be saying that. And I'm talking about myself because it's life. Breath is life. I mean, it's not that complicated. And I think what's really interesting as well is, when I do it, and sometimes I do like guided ones on YouTube, because
Mm,
sometimes I struggle to focus my mind just by myself.
mm,
Um, and I'll do like a 5-minute one or something like that. And I think the really important thing as well is that making sure that your breath goes all the way into the base of your belly, and it's really
mm,
deep, slow breaths, because we breathe up here shallow when we're stressed. And that's actually how most of us breathe all day, every day. And we're just like, you don't even notice it. Your breath just stays up here. And that's really unhealthy breathing. It's meant to go deep down in and out, and deep and slow and conscious. And that the breath is what activates the thing called the vagus nerve, which is the nerve that activates your rest and digest. So you got the stress response, the fight or flight, and then you got the rest and digest, which is the opposite one. And so if you're in stress response, then you do the breathing, activates the vagus nerve, and that turns on your rest and digest. So everything calms down, blood pressure calms down, breathing, heart rate, immune system goes back on, everything starts functioning again, because of that particular nerve, which is connected from your brain to all of your major organs. And it's breathing properly that activates it. And like you say, you can do it so quickly when you get into the habit of doing it. And sometimes for me, it takes a little bit longer because if I'm in a really panicky state.
yeah,
And sometimes it can feel worse before it feels better. So I'm like,
yeah.
because now you're focusing on your breath, which makes it more like I can't breathe. Like, so then it takes a little bit of like, but if you can just keep going, it's so powerful. And I've had times where I've stuck with it and I've come out of the breathing exercise and I feel like I'm floating on a cloud
Mm,
and I'm in a whole different state. But that's what you've done. You've changed your state, you've changed your energy, you change your consciousness. And that is what self mastery is all about. And being resilient is all about, and handling all these challenges and progressing and thriving instead of surviving is to manage yourself, manage your state. So breathing is excellent. Is there anything else you would recommend,
Well, I
Helen?
was just going to say on the breathing thing is if you've been particularly stressed
Yeah,
and then you do a breathing exercise, is to be really careful about standing up again, because what you've done is you've brought a lot of oxygen into your body, whereas you've been restricting it beforehand. So just be mindful that you might be a little bit dizzy. But,
it's just
um,
people falling over everywhere.
that's it, yeah. They said this was good for us. Well, I think in terms of and it depends what type of person you are. So,
Mm,
like if the idea of breath work, kind of fills you with horror, the other options are, to go for a walk.
yep,
Change your scenery, I think, is the thing. So
yep,
to go for a walk, obviously being in nature has a huge amount of wellness benefits to it anyway.
yep.
So being outside is really important for us.
Mhm.
But the other thing as well is writing stuff down. Like um, for some people, the idea of doing nothing is too much, and so to actually write things down, just write and write and write, and then when you think you can't write anymore, write some more, because that's a really good way of emptying what's going on in your mind, and like we were talking about earlier, just getting it out,
Yeah,
just get it done.
absolutely. I love that. A couple of that come to my mind are creative work, being creative,
Mm.
childlike play, and creativity. And doesn't mean you have to be good at it. I'm not asking people to be a Van Gogh, or a Monet painter, whatever it is. Like I'm not. It's about the process and the experience and what it does for you mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, as opposed to what you actually create at the end. You might also create something beautiful. If you do, I want to see it. I would love to see it. But I actually have started doing that recently. I've actually got some things next to me, but I'm too
Oh, come
embarrassed to
on.
show them.
Who is the judge of your art?
The Lord above.
Exactly. So who can decide?
Actually, I have some better ones on my tablet. I bought a new tablet that I draw on now, which is amazing. Oh God, Helen, I'm so
Come
embarrassed.
on. We talked about vulnerability earlier, and you said you were going to do
So embarrassed. I'm about to show you my art. One sec, I'll go get it down there.
it. Well, to keep this going, creativity is an amazing way, as Pinky was saying, because it gets us out of the kind of the thinking mode and accesses a different part of our brain. I
I'm
was
so
just saying about
scared.
how creativity takes us out of the thinking mode and access,
Yes.
the creative part of our brain. So it's a good
It's
thing to do.
very good. So when I decided to do my creativity, I got so excited it was ridiculous. I was like a child because I did GCSE art, and one of my favorite parts of that was running around the art shop buying all the pastels and the paints and things. I love doing it. So as soon as this idea came to me that I was going to do some creative work, I went nuts. I went to shop. I was like buying everything that they had, and I had to put loads of it down. I was like, you don't need all of these things. But I started off with some pastels, and I like vibrant colors. This one is not so vibrant, but this was a drawing of a rose of some sort.
Oh wow! Oh, that's
This is-
beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
That's
I like that.
that's not what I was expecting at all. That is amazing.
So then I was like, now I've got to paint, right? Because I love painting. Like painting colors is better because
Oh
painting is like
wow!
vibrant.
Oh,
So
that's
I did it.
lovely.
And then I got like super quirky, and I started doing intuitive painting. So basically, you can do like intuitive creative writing and stuff and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, what if I paint intuitively and I see my own symbolism and my intuitive, and then I just started doing like fun stuff.
Oh, that's
And
lovely.
so this to me is just like creativity. It's just fun. It's just fun. I love colors. I love colorful stuff.
Yeah.
And this is actually now turning into a much bigger creative project because it's actually a book that I'm working on. I think I told you about this, called Welcome Home. And with each painting, it's not painting. I'm then transferring them and doing them on the iPad. It's not an iPad, and I'm not promoting a brand, and it's not that one anyway. But it's a tablet, and it's amazing. You can do so many cool things on there. And I'm drawing, like, whenever I get an intuitive image, I draw the other ones. Like there's lots of different stuff, and they each have like a paragraph that goes with them, about really like coming back home to yourself, your wellness, your soul, your heart, your truth, your wisdom, your intuitive, your creativeness, your God self, all of these things. These are the words that I use. And so that's actually turning into a really, really fun project. And I tell you what, sitting down and doing that, particularly, although I love using the tablet, I've got paints and paintbrushes, and I'm like a kid, and I'm getting paint everywhere, and it's just so fun, and it just makes you feel so good. And it's
Mm,
like you're saying, it activates that part of your brain. And it really, what it is, which is linked to the other thing that I think is a really good fun thing to try, is dancing.
yes.
Even just dancing around your room, right? No, not for anybody else, but for you. And the reason these things work is because when you're stressed, you would not be painting. Like, when I say when you're stressed, because normally the stress response means I'm in danger. I'm about to get killed or harmed or something. That's what the stress response thinks is happening. That's why it kicks in and it's like fight or flight. But if you were genuinely in danger, you would not be painting pictures and dancing around. You'd be running away or something. So by moving your body into an action that is the opposite of what your brain thinks is going on, it tells your brain, "Oh, I'm actually okay. I'm actually safe right now." Because I'm dancing and it loosens everything, you're
Mm,
basically, where the body goes, the mind follows. Because often we think, well, it's mind that you train your brain to affect your body, but it's all a system. It all works together. So you can use your body to calm down your stress, by moving your body into things that are fun and creative and light, and essentially that trains your brain to calm down. So those are a couple of things that I like to do. Saliha says, well done. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I really do. It's so much fun. I highly recommend it. And maybe it's not painting for people. It might be music or,
yeah,
cooking is
yeah.
also very creative. Um, so many things you can do. Good. All right. So, shall we move on to? Feel like we've kind of been covering some of this stuff in a
Mm,
sort of inadvertent way, but really, Helen, do you want to talk about the worksheet?
Yeah.
because then that's really where we've made space for people to do this exercise.
Yeah. So the worksheet that we've created really is to, I'm just scrolling on the side of it, so I have it here, is
Mhm.
really about helping people understand stress and actually to understand how it manifests for them, because of course all of our stress is different. It's a response to a stimulus, and so what might stress you out won't stress me, and what might stress me won't stress you, so therefore it's our reaction to something. So the more we understand what it is that causes that, and also what happens within our body,
Mm,
because sometimes I think a stress response can be so habitual that we don't even notice it's happening. But so there's also, you'll find in the worksheet, a map of the body for you to kind of map out those pain points on your body. So whether it's like, you know, that you regularly suffer from a pain in your neck or your shoulder, and that might be where you hold your stress because you hunch. Like for me, in the past,
that's
I,
me.
I used to get sore throats a lot,
Oh,
and
interesting.
that's because I held my breath. Now, I
Oh,
hadn't
wow.
kind of done, when I had to do the unwind to go, I really don't, I've really got a sore throat, but it would
Yeah.
be because something had happened, and I honestly, I could hold my breath for a really long time, or
Really?
yeah, or take really such short breaths that would be all I needed, you know, just a little, and
That is
and it,
fascinating.
but you know what the consequence, the long-term consequence of that for me
Yeah.
was, and this is where we were talking about the stress response and what it can do to you. My diaphragm just got so stuck. So your diaphragm is the muscle that's kind of underneath here, and
Yeah.
that moves up and down when, or should move up and down when we breathe.
Yeah.
Um, because I wasn't breathing properly, it wasn't taking its full extension. And so actually I end up suffering with all sorts of other pains because I wasn't breathing properly.
Wow.
It's interesting,
That
isn't
is
it?
very interesting. This just made me think of one that I've spotted in myself as well that I didn't know I was doing, clenching my jaw.
Oh yeah.
And I only noticed this literally maybe a couple months ago. I don't even know why I noticed it. All of a sudden, I just noticed that I'm just sat there and my teeth are like, and I was like, and I loosened it. I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing that? And now I spot myself doing it every day. Not
Mm.
necessarily yet, but I do it a lot. I still do it a lot. And I catch myself and like my teeth are pressed together. And I'm like, that's not good. And then, like you say, I think people who really do it a lot, and then they have like grinding teeth as well at night,
Yeah,
particularly. I
yeah.
think that's a stress thing. And then you end up with jaw problems and your teeth problems, and all sorts of stuff is going to have a knock on. It's going to have a knock on effect. So it's really important to become self-aware and start to notice these things that you're doing. Um, so that's yeah, a really, really important thing. I forget.
Well, and I think another an interesting one is, you know, pains in your legs.
Yeah,
And actually, that's because when we get into fight or flight,
yeah,
our muscles in our glutes and our thighs tense because we're getting ready to run. And
yeah.
then, of course, if we're not actually running, we're not getting rid of that energy, the muscles still tense, you know, and with the hormones that kind of flush through us in those times, is that's why those parts of your body can really, really ache, even though you haven't done anything at all.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I hold a lot in my back and my
Mm.
shoulders. I remember anytime I went to get a massage, they're always like, "Oh my God, what's wrong with you?" Because my back is like, "Ugh," and they're like trying to get these knots out. I was like, "Ow, it hurts." So I hold a lot in my back. And I'm actually coming up with some ideas of my last points that we're going to cover later around moving forward. This is giving me ideas. I'm just going to make a note of it. Um, because these are really important things, right? Physical
Yeah,
health is mental health. It's all one system. It all works together.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
I
and
find it
yeah,
really funny when people say the body and mind are linked, you know, and I think, well, of course they are. It's us, you know,
what
that's what
else
makes
did
us
you
a
think was
human
happening? Do
being.
you know what I mean? It's like, no,
Yeah,
my
yeah,
mind is out there over there as a separate thing.
yeah,
But it is, no, absolutely. And it's, one of the things I always ask in my training is I ask people like how many, I think it's like the question is I feel like I'm giving it away if anyone happens to do my training and they do my self-awareness quiz, but never mind. It's where is your brain, like, or how many brains do you have, or something like that. Where is your brain? And basically everyone's like, yeah, I've got a brain in my head. It's like, no, your brain is all throughout your body. And you imagine, so obviously you got the head brain, and then the neurons go all the way down your spine, all through your whole body, and they're all part of your brain. All the neurons and the nerves all through your body are all part of your brain, and they're reaching into every little tiny little bit of your body. So everything up there is going through your entire body. And then there's also, you've got the heart brain and the gut brain, which have neurons in. Then we dub the gut the second brain. And that's sending signals to your head as well, and the heart is also sending signals to your head as well, and actually giving instructions to your head. So there's a lot more research coming out about this stuff, about the system, right, and the three brains, and actually the whole thing is just a big brain, and it's all interconnected, so complex. And so this idea that we just have this thing in our head only and the body separate, I mean, it's just, I don't know how people still think that, but some do right now. But it's really important to understand that that's not how it works. I think in engaging all those brains, also gut stuff is really important. This is why gut health affects mood and mental health, because your gut brain is linked to your head brain, and you make, I think it's serotonin, is it the happy hormone, one of
Yes.
them that you make in your gut. And so what you eat is going to affect how you feel and your stress and your mood. So all of this stuff can be looked at to really help you with your wellness and to get into a state of thriving and not being in a stressed out state of surviving, which does nothing for you unless you're being chased by a lion or you're about to get hit by a car, God forbid, and you need to get out of the way. Other than that, it just doesn't work for us in this modern world, in the Western modern world. Again, in other places, whatever people go through. But so that's some things there around. What else is in the worksheet?
Well,
Once we've done the stress bit, yeah.
so the thing that I think is really, really important is understanding the cycle of stress,
Hmm.
because we need to move that stress through our body, which is why, we were talking about the creativity, the meditation, the breathing, all of that kind of stuff. So there's some information about that in the worksheet, because we should be doing something every single day for the stress to realize that it's, or our bodies to realize that the stress has gone. Because if we don't, all it does is it stacks it up. It stacks it up, which is why we become irritable or emotional, or whatever those things are, because the stress has just been stacking up inside our bodies. So yeah, we'll kind of go through that, and we'll also give you prompts to kind of understand what is the stress, where do you feel it in your body, some ideas about how to complete the stress cycle, and also what you can do. And throughout the workbook, you'll see that there's prompts to kind of work with other people. So if that's your team at work, or if it's your family unit, or if it's you with your friends, it's a good idea to work with other people, just to even get different ideas. Maybe develop an amazing playlist to dance to, I don't. And then we're talking about there's an exercise called Survive or Thrive, and that's really thinking about what effect the pandemic has had on you. And we do express some caution in there around thrive, because what we want people to really do is think about, if this got you through, was it a healthy thing? Like, and I don't mean that as a judgment, but I think you explained it really well about a sustainable activity that doesn't have a negative side effect.
Did I say that? That's good.
You did. You did
I
say
like
that.
it.
I think I noted it as you said
I was like, that's really great. I said it. Okay.
it.
Do you know what it reminds me of actually as well is that is really good. Let's get that quote as well.
Okay, I'll write that down.
What it reminds me of as well is it's very similar to the definition of addiction that Gabor Mate uses,
Yeah.
which is basically, I'm going to mess it up, but I'm going to try my best to say it and articulate it. But it's something like, so addiction is something that you know is bad for you in the long run, but it gives you a short-term high. And even though you know it's bad for you in the long run, you can't stop doing it. And when we talk about addictions, we're not just talking about hard drugs and stuff and alcohol, which is also, alcohol has been a big problem during this time, understandably. More people at home just drinking because what else, and gets, soothes the stress, self-medication essentially. But addiction is also to your phone, technology, to shopping, to money, to sex, to people get addicted to stress. Negative
Yeah.
emotions are addictive. And this is why we have to do the things you just mentioned. Close that off, calm it down, because your body has gotten used to it. And if you've been in a heightened state of stress for 18 months, your body's like, right, this is how we roll now. This is what we do every day now. We're like this every day now, right? No way. Please don't be like that every day. That's going to be the death of us. And I say that very literally, because stress kills. It does. Not only does it kill your fulfillment and your creativity and your well-being and your possibility in your life, but it kills your body. uh and we can't keep going like that, and so this is what it's about, is really understanding, what's going on inside, and really taking time to calm that down. What were we saying a minute ago? I keep losing my track. Do you want to get back?
Because I mentioned about the word of caution around thrive, and I think like you
Yes.
brought up many of those things around, um, and we use the example shopping because that's definitely a thing of mine in the past, was around, if a little bit of shopping is sustainable for you, and that's fine because you need something or you want something for sure. But if you're actually just stacking up a load of things that you're buying and you can't really afford it, and then you're worrying about money, or you're worrying about how to return it, or whatever those things, if you're adding more stress down the line, then actually you need to kind of consider whether that's something that's really helping you thrive, or whether
That's
it's just a
really
band-aid.
Yeah, I have two questions. I have one question and one comment. I'll do the comment first, which is that's a really important distinction you've made there about how to spot the things that are not actually healthy. Is that
Mm,
they cause more stress down the line. They
yeah,
cause more problems down the line. So you think, I'll just have that glass of wine. No, I'll have three.
yeah.
Now the next day I'm hungover. I can't do my work. I'm behind on my work. So now that's caused me another problem. Or, like you say, when it becomes a serious addiction, and maybe you're spending a lot of money on things like gambling, and now, oh, it gives me a little bit of, distraction, but now you've just screwed your financial situation, which is going to be, so that's a really key thing. All of the things that are dysfunctional will give you more problems
Mm.
later on as knock-on effects. So that's a key way to look at it. Whatever it is that you've been doing, is it having knock-on negative effects? And then my question to you is, when you go on your shopping thing, what do you buy? I want to know what you buy when you
Well,
like.
do you know, I don't, I've healed myself.
Oh, nice,
But
very good.
I used to have a
Yeah,
real thing about clothes and shoes, and
yeah,
actually, I mean, it happened more like my realization before the pandemic, but in the pandemic, I was just like, do you remember the story, the magic porridge pot that just kept overflowing? When they kept, if you came and got some porridge, the porridge pot would just fill up again. And I felt like my wardrobes were like that. I kept decluttering and then going, and they go, how are they still full?
I love
Where
it.
does all this come from? And
Yeah.
I think for me, the whole, the last 18 months have been a massive realization of what I actually want in my life.
Mm,
And so for me, I have absolutely loved the walks. I'm trying to fall in love with gardening. But there's been so much, and cooking, definitely cooking, that
mm,
now I go, okay, would you rather go and shopping and do this, or would you rather do this? And actually,
mm,
I'd rather go on a picnic and,
nice.
sit in the woods, or, something like that.
Yeah,
So,
I love it.
yeah, that's my kind of realization.
Nice, nice. So I think in terms of mapping thrives and survives, I think that's a really important point we've made there. And what you use to survive is not healthy, or what you
Yeah.
think is helping you thrive is not necessarily helping and healthy. And I'm just thinking, if there were any of those things that I did, and actually there is, as I'm thinking about it, I am addicted to work. And so, because I had more time and wouldn't be doing the normal social things that I would normally be doing, and I wouldn't be going out into London and meeting friends and doing stuff at the weekend, and because I haven't been doing that, I filled that time and space with work. Now, it's good because I love my work, but it's also can be dysfunctional, and I exhaust myself and it becomes workaholism basically, which is not healthy.
Mm.
And actually I can use exactly the process you just shared to see that very clearly now in a way that I've not seen it before, which is the thing you're doing really helping you thrive? Well, check, are there any knock-on negative effects to it? Yes, I'm exhausted, I've got too much on, I get stressed because I can't do it, and then I just end up like procrastinating because it's too much, because I get overwhelmed, so I check out, and then I waste time, and then I don't get things done, which makes me feel worse, and then I'm in that snowball. So clearly being a workaholic is not helpful for me. Thank you for helping me realize that today.
Well, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? If we're looking at how does this help me be the best version of myself, or whatever that that phrase is that you want,
Yes.
um, is that activity helping you be that kind of person?
Yeah. Yeah. And if it's done in a functional way, yes. And this is the thing I would say, it's not necessarily what you're doing, it's what part of you is doing it and where you're coming
Yeah.
from. Am I doing this thing to fill a hole, to fill an emptiness, to just try and cope and to get rid of my pains? Or am I doing it because I love it, because it's
Mm.
making me thrive, because it's making me excited and inspired, and I'm getting great results and wonderful things are happening for me? And the same thing could be the object of attention, like I say, with work. It could be in either of those camps, and I'm often in either of those camps, but I'm very aware now that I'm often doing the dysfunctional side of things as well. And so for me, should we look at, moving forward in terms of what would you take forward in terms of thrive and survive? And we
Mhm.
touched on a number of things that we've experienced in our lives. What sort of stuff? Let's look at the survival things first and see if there are any more. So I guess I just kind of shared one of mine, which is the workaholic stuff.
Mhm.
I would consciously be looking to cut down on, because that's a survival, not a thrival. Is there a word as thrival?
I don't know, but I think it should be. I
Yes.
like
Let's make it one now. I like it.
it.
But for me, definitely, because it does go in the thrive camp, but when it becomes dysfunctional, then it goes into the survive camp, and that's not healthy. So for me, an action I would take and say, as you've done in the worksheet, sorry if I am I cutting the flow of the worksheet, am I
No, no, don't worry
skipping
about
ahead?
it at all. It's fine.
But
It's absolutely
it goes on to that point of saying, well, okay, once you've mapped what helps you thrive, what helps you, so what were you using to survive, what are your concerns, what are the challenges, and then you go forward and say, well, how can I take these things forward? So, or stop doing them. So for me, there's definitely a cut down. Something else you mentioned earlier, so cut down on the work side of things and allowing myself the things that do help, like the walks. Like you say, I was good at the walks at first, and then I stopped because I've got too much work to do. The walks, the nature. I think those are definitely things I'd like to bring back in. And as you were talking about, pain points in the body of stress, and you just reminded me how my back holds so much tension. And so just some simple things to move forward for me around, stretching. And, I don't know if the spas are open yet, but, going for something like that. And I used to do that a lot, actually. I
fine.
used to do massages, spas very often. I loved it. And then obviously when everything shut, I stopped. And now I'm just holding it all in here from 18 months. And it's like, I feel it. So I think for me, definitely moving forward, um, to help on the thriving, I would take more care of my physical self. That's one of my weakest areas. Like when it comes to the mind, the emotions, the soul, the spirit, that I'm all over that 24/7, and I'm doing it in my sleep. When it comes to my body, I just forget about it. Like I don't know how to describe what goes on for me, but I don't really think about it. I don't do stuff like consciously. I used to. There were times in the past where I was like gymming and doing
Mhm.
yoga and playing squash and eating better. And I don't eat badly, but I know there's so much more I could do there. But it's like you're saying, these are sort of parts of the important foundations. But for me, that's something that I could probably look at as well. So going forward,
I was going to
sorry,
say, like, you know, it's a really good foundation of things for people to think about. So I suffered from burnout a few years ago, and as a result, I developed what I call my purposeful life strategy. And
mm,
there are 5 components of that, and that is move, eat, breathe, mind, and sleep. And I would suggest that people look at those 5 things and say, what's your relationship with them? So, how
mm,
often do you move? You know, what are you eating? How's your mind, your self-talk, you know, all of those kind of things.
yeah,
What's your breathing like? And how well are you sleeping? Because I think if you can check in on those 5 things,
yeah,
then everything else, you know, kind of comes, because they're the foundation. If you
yeah.
get those right, you're all right.
I'm smiling because I wrote them down. I'm like, I don't do any of those.
But it might be, you know, it
I do
might
the
be that you,
mind. Was mind one of them?
yeah, mine was one
I
of
do
them,
mind.
yes.
I'm kicking it on mind,
Got that
but
one. But it
move,
might be like
eat,
with move, you
breathe.
might set a real small target to start with, which is like, I want to do 5,000 steps a day, or, you know,
Yeah,
like, and I think the trouble is sometimes people set such huge goals that they're so unattainable that you go, oh, I can't do that, and give up.
that's so true.
So just
Yeah,
set a small, you know, if walking 5,000 steps, you know,
yeah,
which obviously can involve dancing or whatever that thing is,
yeah,
then do that. Or if it's 20 minutes a day or whatever your thing is.
yeah.
And you know, eating,
Mm,
the best tip I ever had around eating well is try and get as many colors on a plate as you can. You know, like,
yeah,
because if you make your dinner colorful,
yep,
actually chances are it's going to be really healthy.
yeah,
Because if you're eating a plate of yellow food, then I think we all know that that's not good for you. So there's
yeah,
some really simple things you can do to kind of really look after yourself.
yeah. That's really, really helpful. And it is something that I am looking at in my own life because it's really coming to the surface
Mm.
recently. It's come up in conversations a few times now, and I'm becoming more aware of it. And like we said, it's all linked, mind, body, soul. It's all one thing. And yes, you work on one, it affects the other, but the other, it's all, you got to take care of the whole system.
Mm.
And that is definitely an area that I would like to improve on. So thank you for those tips because I will definitely be looking at those as well. Something you said there you said something that made a question come up in my mind, but I've lost it. So do you have any other thoughts while I see
Do
if
I
it
have
can
a
come
thought
back
about what
into
might
my
have been the thought
brain?
in your mind?
Do you know what's in my brain? Can you go in there, please, and tell me what was it? Um,
No, I can't tell you what it was.
uh,
No, I think the only other thing really on the sheet is about, you know, some further resources that might be useful to people.
yeah,
So some books that, you know, we've appreciated, and some meditation, some movement. I mean, and it's not exhaustive at all. You know,
mm,
there's so much more that's
yeah,
available, but just as
yeah,
an idea to kind of start. And I think going back to the organization, actually, like if you're in within an organization, is to think about how do you make time for people to have things that look after their health and well-being. So do you set like a step challenge? You know, if people are still working from home, do you set up like a team step challenge, or, you know, something like that that helps people feel part of something but also look after their health
yeah,
as well?
yeah. And I think, with the organization side of things, like we were saying earlier, there's so much potential, but you have to make the choice and you have to take
Mm.
the actions. And if you're a leader, you have to create the environment that is going to facilitate progress and thriving rather than surviving. And we know that I know we're talking about people, but you can even do it for the business as a whole. God, this is going to sound a bit out there, but this is how my brain works. Like, we've got a thing on the worksheet that's a picture of the body that's like, where do you put your stress, your pain points, your stress, and where are you feeling it? You literally map your business as the structure, as the body. Where are our stress points and our pain points in our business? Is it in our finances? Is it in our product development? Is it in the resourcing? Is it in the team engagement, the staff engagement? Is it the staff wellness, the retention? You can do a map of that. It's almost like a stress map of your organization. And then you can start to see, all right, what do we need to look at? What do we need to bring to the surface? What do we need to start talking about? What do we need to see if there are any things we can do, at least to start reducing those points? Because I can almost see an organization is like a brain. And when you're in a stressed out state in your organization and your organization is in stress, you also are not going to be creative and innovative and thinking about the future and having great visions and knowing how to move forward and coming up with wonderful ideas that are really going to help everybody, including your customers and your staff and all that stuff. So it's literally like everything we've just said about what you can do for yourself as a human being, take it and do it in a business is the same thing. And you just see the business as it's an organism in itself. It is.
Yeah.
So where are the stress points? How can you alleviate those? So at least you're bringing that down to then open up again the more creativity for how you move forward. And can you look at what did you do to survive during this time? And do you want to, how did that affect you? What were you all going through? What were you doing? Did you do redundancies and things? How has that affected your organization and your culture and people's, engagement and all sorts of things? What else did you do to survive? Did you have to sell off some of your business areas? I don't know. Did you have to cut your prices? How has that affected you? And again, what did you do to thrive? Did you actually run a really great well-being program for your staff while they're at home? Did you manage to really get effective team working going online and so on? Did you buy some new collaborative online softwares and things like that, which actually work really well? So these may be in your thrive list. Maybe you innovated and did something, very disruptive in your business that actually has sent you off in a really good direction. And now again, do exactly the same thing for your business and move forward and say, okay, well, all the things we did to survive, we probably don't want to be doing those anymore. So how do we consciously phase those out? All the things we're doing to thrive, how do we capitalize on those? How do we move more of those? And maybe as you do that, more of these things will start to come into your mind in terms of ideas and creativity. So I really see it in that way, is that everything we've said applies to a business. A business is an organism. A business is a being just like I am. And you can use the same tools and the same way of thinking and looking at it and growing and developing it as you would for an individual human being or a group of human beings. You can do it for your whole business. And so really that for me brings it full circle on this, from surviving to thriving. We've been through craziness for 18 months, and we can all move into a state of thriving if we do it consciously and we use the tools that we've shared as just a few of the tools, right? Because there's a lot more you can do, particularly like we're talking about in a business environment. There's so many other things you can look at, but if you can use that and move forward consciously, I think we can thrive individually, as families, as teams, as friends, as organizations. But we have to be conscious creators of our reality. And that is something that you have to stand up and do. Thriving is a conscious choice. Surviving is a natural instinctive response, a reaction. But thriving, you have to choose that and choose what you do and choose and do it actively and consciously. And you can do it for yourself. You can do it for your team. You can do it for your whole business, using exactly what we've discussed. And that's just really hit me in a new way right now as we're talking, that the organization is an organism in itself and can be treated in exactly the same way as we've just talked about. So I am gonna that's all I have to say. Is there anything that
That's it,
you
I'm
want?
exhausted now, I'm done.
I'm done. You've had everything from me. Bye. See you. Bye. I'm out. Peace. Got no more juice. I'm done. No, go for it, Helen. What do anything you
So
want to share?
I guess my close would be around thinking about contribution. So and that really is, in difficult times we can find it, when maybe we've assigned ourselves a role, or and then we were working and got made redundant, or whatever those things are. Think about what's your contribution towards your goal, and if that's you as an individual, you as a team, you as a family unit. Because if you take the example of a family unit, contribution is going to be someone looking after the kids, someone doing the food shopping, someone cooking the dinners, someone earning some money. And there's nothing that says that's more important than that. So it's about how do you contribute together, and so you all feel like you're playing a part. Because I think it can be really frustrating to think I can't go to work and earn money, but actually there are other things that you can do that contribute towards people moving together.
Yeah.
So, and that's particularly why I think it's important. And I guess for a team as well, people in the office, not in the office, what's the contribution that people are making towards the goal of the team?
Yeah.
To make sure that we do value everybody as an individual.
I love that. Fantastic. And I think, I really like as well that goal focus. And what that also brings up for me is one of the key ways to reduce your own stresses is to stop thinking about yourself and
Yeah.
actually be of service to someone else. And actually say, you know what, as we move back into the workplace and I might be stressed and whatever, but actually, how can I help? Like you're saying, how can I contribute? How can I help someone else who might be struggling even more than me? How can I help resolve the challenges rather than just putting more problems on the table and then waiting for someone else to give me an answer? How can I help that person who's, suffering from XYZ or whatever, or just needs someone to talk to, or, or even out in the community, like you're saying, things like, supporting, I think I've lost you on the Instagram, but we're closing
Yeah,
now.
my
So we're just
yeah.
no, okay. um, but I think, like you're saying, the wider cause, because as we've said before, this is not just something that we experience individually. This is a societal shift. It's a cultural shift. Everything's changed. Every aspect of our lives has been affected, short, medium, long term, future generations as well. Kids are being affected. We might think, no, they're just little, they're
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
No, they're picking up on every single thing, and they're learning new behaviors of mindsets and emotions. They're picking up stress, anxiety. They're learning their patterns that they're now going to carry for the rest of their lives. And then like us, we'll have to read all the books and things to try and help them resolve those issues now and go to therapy because we
Yeah.
didn't quite handle it as best as we maybe could have, to do what we can to save them a little bit if we can from, having too much of that to deal with, because it is going to happen. And I don't mean to be pessimistic about it. It's just how human beings function, right? So I think, can you serve in any other way? Can you help other people? Can you look at society on a bigger scale? Like you were talking about the high street. If that's something you care about, can you do something to help that area of our lives? This is something about community, or, can you do something to help more people get exercising again and things if they haven't been, or be social if they're just glued to their screen all day? If you're really stressed, I think one of the best things, you stop thinking about yourself, because
Yeah.
that's what causes stress. Me. I'm gonna die. I'm not surviving. Something's wrong. Something's wrong with me. Or maybe your close unit, your family and things. But generally, it tends to be a whole focus on yourself. So when you take the focus off yourself and start putting attention and energy out there to help others, it just alleviates, just like that. So that's another powerful thing that I think is good to do moving forward. Um, I'm just going to, I've got a message from Arush. Arush, I don't know if you're still there or how long you've been there, but he says there's no audio on Instagram.
Oh.
Don't know how long that's been going on for the whole session. Sorry for 2 hours. Arush, I don't know what's happened there. I'm only just going to hope that there was audio at some
It must
point.
have worked earlier because people were interacting with us on
People
it.
were interacting, yeah. I wonder if it was just when you came out, maybe, I'm not sure.
Mm,
Never mind, but I think we're at closing anyway.
I think we are.
Um, so I will just say thank you to everyone who's joined, and thank you for the wonderful comments and interactions. And if you watch this later, please do still put your comments into the comment section, because we will look at them, and other people will. And again, it's about sharing what you're experiencing with others, so that we don't feel like we're so alone and we are all doing this together. Workbook, Helen, do we want to talk about getting that?
Yeah, so if you want a copy of the workbook, then DM either of us, or message in any of the comments here or whatever, and we'll get it sent over to you.
Yep. Fantastic. Good. All right. Any other closing comments? Or other than that, we can say
Yeah.
here's to thriving,
Yep.
not surviving. And what was that? So embarrassed.
It's
I'm
Friday
sorry.
afternoon. It's been a
It's
long
like
week.
I don't even know what that was. And now it's all over the internet.
That's right, we
Um,
can cut it.
Don't make a meme out of that one. I know when you're playing the video.
Yeah.
We'll just take that and post it everywhere. No, good. But we will be doing that actually, won't we? We'll be, putting
Yeah,
some
we
more
will,
videos
yeah.
together for people, because we know that obviously not everyone is able to sit through a longer session. But we'll be giving you little tidbits. Don't worry, more will be coming. Good. So should we say goodbye?
We should say goodbye, yes.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank
Take
you.
care, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.